You know, I have this secret fear that nothing I've written is original because Audre has already written it. You know, I left Jamaica because, you know, it was not safe to be a lesbian there in the early mid-90s. And so I found myself inside of New York where I thought I was going to land in this amazing place that was full of, I don't know, meadows and lesbians, I don't know what I thought. And I landed here and I was like, oh shit, I'm black. And I don't know, like I think if Audre Lorde wasn't an amazing writer, if she wasn't an amazing thinker, if she wasn't fierce, if she wasn't any of those things, just by virtue of being from the Caribbean, a black woman with natural hair on top of her head, who was unpretentious and kind of spoke her truth and claimed a Caribbean identity and claimed a black identity and called herself a lesbian out loud. For many years I thought I was the only lesbian Caribbean, you know, poet person until I discovered Audre Lorde and you know, and I've seen her work kind of move long after she left us to crack open the chests of young people and give them language for what they feel. And in many ways, you know, like I if I had a soundtrack in my head when I travel as a writer, as a poet, when I travel, when I think about going back to Jamaica, coming back here and being who I am, it would be an Audre Lorde soundtrack, because that would give me courage, because I know someone else did it, so I know it was possible. And you know, I actually wrote this poem just after, well, it doesn't matter, but here's the poem about that process of being a person who was from many different places and discovered that there were so many other people who carried bits of my own identity inside of them and made me feel less alone and like I could survive it, you know. Because, you know, often when you're like fierce, you walk through the world and people, you're very invested in convincing people that you are unbreakable. And none of us is. And so, you know, Audre's work, you know, in many, many moments, reminds me that, you know, you could break and you could heal. June Jordan, Pat Parker, Cheryl Boyce Taylor, Pamela Sneed, Erica Doyle. I mean, those were the ones that I could pull out of my head. Just backstage, just before I walked, and I was like, my God, like there were so few people doing it when she was doing it, and now like there's like, you know, we're at least, you know, like, you know, the G train on the subway map in terms of the number of us that exist. Not quite the A train yet, but we're getting there. Traveler, writer, poet. This morning finds me rootless. No home to speak of, except the transient angle of flights, zigzagging across the Atlantic, Pacific. Time zones trap me irregular in sleep. Awake, I dream of faces I may never see again. Another city unfolds itself, nameless. The thin light, bleeding recognition in a faint skyline. Land marked by tragedy, by grief carried on other shoulders, other frames slumped over in defeat. I have learned to stand in the suffering of strangers. It reminds me I do not have to die in my own sorrow. Better to look outward at someone else than be trapped inside this loop of, if only and had I known I would have done this or said that. The past is ink, an indelible link wrapped round the regret, ground into the dust of all survivors. Our feet itch to run. Always we are poised for flight. Beautiful creatures, winged, lifted chest, reaching up, out, away. Home is where you are most afraid to stay. You might break something, your own heart, a promise, the pinned feather of those grounded, paralyzed by events that happened a long time ago. Long time ago, it felt so real then. Now what happened is a ghost flickering hallways only you can see. Without a record of your history, no one recognizes the ancient urge to run, to tear, to smash words on walls or call of the damage. Makes us snap the neck of things once or twice denied, things still hoped for. Better to shatter the cherished than to wait for the inevitably annihilating explosion. Those of us who did not die are always waiting for God's other shoe to trample what is left of us. Without the anchor of a tale, the irrational flap of you perplexes everyone left gasping in the wake of you. Defensive, arms raise themselves, your children cower under you. Enigmatic hurricane. If they are lucky, they become artists or activists. Careful angst targeted at some vague injustice. They flail, fall, break themselves and heal. Most often our children inherit these harrowing silences, this regret, brutal with ineloquent I love yous. Sometimes they just need to hear you say it plain. I love you. All too often, self-preservation overrides everything. We settle mute into, now, how should they know how much you sacrificed, how much you lived through, so they can stand here asking for words that mean nothing to me. Actions, what I do every day says, I will die for you. The resulting tangle is astounding, accusatory anger bequeathed unaddressed for generations. For generations. Until you see someone else speak out. Until you decide to say, this stops with me. Right here. I am taking the fucking permission to utter the unutterable. Right now, I'm going to say the unsayable out loud. It was my father or my grandfather, my uncle, it was Bobby, it was Andrew, it was my teacher, it was Sister Mary Catherine, it was dark, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was before bed, it was after breakfast, it was your absence, mother, your silence, your hard choices, it was your perfume, your divorce, how you held my arm, it was the way you smiled, the way you said my name. I will never forget the way you said my name. It was the time I spent, the money, the way I never thought me deserving. What a word for a girl with so many issues. Deserving. The weight of it is almost more than I can bear. Who ever asked me about what I wanted or what was owed to me? I have lived my whole life in a reservoir of things taken. How do I learn to receive, to ask for what I want? What I need to remain whole. I climb these fucking hills, one hill at a time. My grandmother so believed in climbing one mountain at a time. So in that tradition, I will say it was my mother and my father. It was my first boyfriend. It was the first woman who let me love her. The first lover who ever hit me. Her fists, words flung effortless. My body sailing into the radiator. The distance between me and Jamaica. An old, tired song. It was this poet. It was this woman writing poems, riddles of an island. She wasn't quite sure she still belonged to. In this new homeland, America. All these lashes I am still bearing. I am South Africa. I am my enigma. I am home. How much harder home is becoming. As I get older, how much harder home is becoming. Belonging is a word that still indicts me. Passion, and how I'm always surviving my own fervor. Art, and how it always saves me. You have to say it out loud. You have to say it. One word at a time. You have to say it. Art, and how it has saved me. You have to say it. Love, or passion, or home. You have to say it. How you are surviving. One poem